Hey Wargamers, welcome back to the channel, Death from Above Wargaming. I'm Aaron and I am back again with more Battlytics excitement. I don't know how we haven't done this one yet, but we're finally doing the Grasshopper. This is one of my favorites. This is one of the toughest 70-ton mechs and just a timeless design. And by that I mean it kicks butt in every era. It's just simple and elegant and I love it. So this is the GHR-5H. This one is from like 2780. It's like an original, old school design. It's very, very cool. It's got jump jets, you know the drill. And there was a great book, I think it was called Legacy. Maybe it's basically a collage of short stories that all the characters are different, but the one consistent feature is it's the same grasshopper in every story throughout the eras. It's very cool. If you have not read it, I would highly recommend that book. It's really, really good read. But anyway, we're going to dive into the numbers, so stay tuned. Grasshopper Battlytics, it's coming right up. All right, technical overview of the Grasshopper GHR-5H. It almost spells grasshopper. So battle value of 1427. That's pretty good for a 70-ton mech, in my opinion. You do pay for the jump jets. It's a 464. It has 22 single heat sinks. Like, ooh, that's 12 tons of heat sinks. That's a lot. But they are much needed and well assigned, in my opinion. Of course, this is Intersphere, Succession Wars era tech, so nothing fancy, standard fusion engine, standard everything else, and it has 13 tons of armor. That's 208 pips. It's 95.9% coverage. That's very, very good. It does have hands, which is cool, and the armor distribution looks really well, sort of well laid out there. It's a little bit under on the torsos, but it's even, and the legs as well. The arms are well protected. Weapons. Let's talk about weapons. It's got a big, large laser in the CT. I hate large lasers. I don't like their heat to damage to range. I don't like it. But we'll see how it does here. It has a quad of medium lasers, one in each torso, one in each arm. These things are devastating once you get in range. And then just for I think coverage on the run-in, it does have an LRM-5 mounted in the head, and it's got ammo in the right torso feeding that launcher. So we're going to dive into the offensive benchmarks first. Curious to see how this thing does. Here it is, offensive benchmarks. So first things first, it really doesn't build up any heat, needless to say, until all of your medium lasers and everything get into range, and even then you're only building up 1 point of heat per turn. So that's I think very reasonable, and that assumes that you're walking. Obviously, if you alpha strike and you jump, that's a different story. You're going to build up a lot more heat. However, at the end of the day, you just don't fire the LRM or don't fire the large laser the next turn, and with 22 heat sinks, you'll cool off very, very quickly. Let's talk about damage. So in this particular case, the optimized and the red line were the same, which were a little bit higher than the baseline by about 1%, 1 point of damage. Nothing to write home about. All in, it's doing about 131.1 points of damage over the 12 turns. As a point of reference, that's not bad. So it's about on par with the Warhammer, I believe the Warhammer 6D the Warhammer 6D does 132.8. The Marauder 3D does 134, the Catapult K2 does 130, the Zeus 6S does 130. So that's 70 to 80 ton Intersphere, sort of era range. Like that's pretty much on par. So that's not bad. And considering most of its weapons are close range, that's not a bad number. I'm curious to see survivability, because that can take away from those close range. Like you can see how it's not a flat damage curve. Like it really comes up at 9 inches, so 9 hexes when those medium lasers come into play. So we'll see. Anyway, lethality, I was able to kill the Javelin 73.8% of the time. It doesn't do a lot of damage per hit, 5.1. It's got a lot of guns. It's got an LRM-5. It does more crits than average, right? So 4.37 is a little bit higher than what we see typically. We see in the 3s. That's your average. But the overall time to kill was 8.13. So that's not bad. Again, it once it gets in there, it's able to do a lot of damage and kill it, but it doesn't always get the job done. Again, about 75% of the time it's able to do so. So some engine kills, as you see. Whenever I see engine kills, I think I mentioned this on one of the other ones, it typically means there's either a lot of weapons, they're spreading a lot of damage around, you're generating a lot of crits. So you can see that here. And then, less head kills, very, very low number there, 7.5%. Most of that is luck when, a couple of medium lasers end up hitting the head in the same game or something along those lines, because it doesn't really have any decapitators. Most of the kills are you're just tearing the thing to shreds. So this is like a hole puncher. It's like your Kintaro. It's like those types of things. Now, if you're playing Alpha Strike or you're playing Destiny, right, and that damage is sort of more grouped and focused, it becomes a little bit more lethal. But in Classic, you have that sort of Stormtrooper syndrome where all the guns are shooting in different directions. So you don't always get the kills as quickly as you would like, but it can certainly churn out the damage, which is good. Now, let's take a look at the defensive side. We'll see how the mobility looks. We'll see how the armor and survivability looks. I think that will tell the tale. So again, another one that is like grossly over-armored in the rear. I don't understand it. It's a trend. It's the thing. It's what kids are doing these days, putting armor on the rear. I don't know. It's not a big deal though. This thing has so much armor, it's fine. But like, I would have just put the rear to spec and put a ton more in the front. But I think this one, unlike some of the other ones, this one is built for close range, right? You got 4 medium lasers and a large laser. Like, you're going to be jumping around, like being an idiot, shooting people at point blank range. There's a chance they're going to get in the rear. Considering the rest of the armor distribution, I'm actually okay, and I wouldn't change it. I'm okay with the rear being sort of over allocated, if you will. Now, speaking of survivability, getting shot in the back, so 81.4% of the time this thing survives in our simulation, which is very, very good. Motive hits are very, very low. And even if you do take a motive hit, you still have your jump jets to get you around. The jump jets, do help pack out, I believe, those leg criticals. I think that is where they are. Yes. So it has 4 jump jets, and it has 2 of them, two in each leg. So that's basically good as it gets there. The most common way that it dies is CT deaths, but ammo deaths are actually not far behind at 7.2% on ammo. CT and head, the normal way mechs go to die is only in 9.1%, so not just about 2%, just under 2% higher. So surprising that those ammo deaths are so high. So maybe something fun you can do is once you get into medium laser range and you feel good about life, just dump that LRM-5 ammo, just get rid of it and mitigate that risk. Engine death's very, very low, but a thing that happens, that shows me that this mech is very, very tough if it's, getting those criticals in the internal, CT there. I mean, it does have a ton of pips at a 70-ton mech, and I will tell you just from experience in playing this thing, in the Succession Wars era, it's like a zombie, especially if you dump that ammo. It's really, really hard to bring down. So, defensive looks good. 81.4 is not like super stellar. I mean, it's not a Fafner, but it's still very, very good. So let's see how the efficiency shakes out on this one. All right, so the efficiency numbers are in, and the Grasshopper is a 5.93. So again, we're talking about Succession Wars era technology. Again, you always pay a premium for jump jets and lots of armor. So I think that drives the battle value up a little bit. But, 5.9, almost a 6, it's really not that bad. If I look at comparable 70-ton mechs, let's see here, like the Archer 2R, that's a 5.69. Archer 2S is 5.94. Warhammer was 6.1. Guillotine was a 6.2. So, I mean, it's in the ballpark. There are 70-ton mechs that are better. The Warhammer 6K was almost a 6.7. And then, of course, the late tech ones, like my favorite, the Avatar, the 9.45. Most controversial mech. But anyway, back to the Grasshopper. And almost 6 is not bad. That's over the halfway mark. You're coming down on the bell curve there. So it's a good buy, again, especially for that Succession Wars era. You do lose about 10% of your damage from the survivability loss. I'm curious, like if I pulled the ammo out of the simulation and said no LRM-5 for you, I'm curious to see how that would change the damage and the the survivability profile. I mean, that ammo is a liability. I would absolutely, again, highly recommend dumping that once you're in range and you're close enough, because there's just no point to carrying around that risk. I mean, it's not doing a ton of damage. It's not like an LRM-20. Gunnery sensitivity on this mech, it's not great, right? 5.94. You're not going to see a ton of return on this particular mech. That's because the range brackets on the medium lasers, where the bulk of your damage is coming from, is so small. Like, you can close it so quickly. You're not like floating at long range for some extended period of time, and that +4, makes a huge difference. So, where would I play this mech? I mean, honestly, I think the Gunnery 2, Gunnery 3 range is probably what I would do with this mech. And if you look at the effective damage by Gunnery, if you want to play this thing at Gunnery 2, it's almost 2,000 battle value. Gunnery 3, it's 1,700. That's a little bit more reasonable to me. And granted, you're looking at about a 20-point damage swing, right? Maybe more, actually. Maybe that's like 30 points. So that's that's significant, especially in this era. So that's just something you need to consider if the battle value is worth the extra damage and so on and so forth. I think if you play this mech smart, it might be worth going to Gunnery 2. I probably would not go any higher than that, because again, so much of it is range dependent. Like, you have to get those medium lasers in range, and this is not the fastest mech in the world. The jump jets help, but a 4.6 mech, it's not blazing fast. So one thing I will say about the Grasshopper, as we jump into the sort of the role analysis, is that this, out of all of the variants that I've seen, this is still my favorite variant. This is still, I think, the most reliable Grasshopper variant. But I'm curious to see what you guys think, so don't forget to leave that in the comments. But before we get there, let's look at the roles, let's look at the threat, and let's see how this thing does on that side. There it is. So I picked 3 roles for this thing. Maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't. I think it's pretty obvious. Brawler for sure. Cavalry. Now, you're going to argue that it's not that fast. It's literally what I just said, and I agree with you. However, I think if it's a terrain-dense board, you can use those jump jets to get through forest, get over mountains, things like that, get over lakes and rivers, and it can keep up with lighter, faster mechs like 5.8s and things like that. So in that regard, I think it can fill that cavalry role. And then the last one is a vanguard role. I mean, this should be like the point mech in your heavy lance. This is the thing that's out front soaking all the fire, because they're going to want to take it down. Your opponent should know that this thing gets in 9 hexes, 9 inches, like you're going to be feeling it. And this thing can survive, I think, in terms of this era. This is a great mech for that. Throw it on a lance with other tough mechs like Wolverines and things like that. You're going to have a tough time, I think, dislodging this lance, bringing this lance down. It's going to soak a lot of firepower while your other mechs can complete objectives or outflank or do whatever it is that you need them to do. Now, if we look at the threat assessment, very obvious. The thing doesn't do crap outside of 15 inches, right? It's an LRM-5 only. I mean, yes, that's great for plinking away at the opponent and starting to soften. Maybe you get a lucky critical, throw armor critical or something, but the LRM-5 is not doing a thing. Once the large laser gets into range, I think you can start doing a little bit more significant damage. I mean, I don't like the large laser just because I think 8 damage for 8 heat is just not worth it to me. And the range profile is not great, but in this particular scenario where you have the heat sinks, I think it's pretty good. And then, again, once you get into 9 inches, that's where, again, you see that massive jump, and you can do 33 points of damage if you get lucky, if everything hits, which is pretty good. Other than that, I don't have much else to say about the Grasshopper. I will tell you, I was expecting a little bit higher in terms of the efficiency, and honestly, I was expecting higher on the survivability, and I think that's probably why the efficiency is lower. I was expecting to be in the 90s. I'm surprised that 1 ton of LRM-5 ammo could be, who knew it could be so volatile? I actually want to jump back and look. Yeah, so I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's only it's a 1 in 6 chance you're going to hit the ammo in that right torso. So that's that's why you get through there. I mean, it literally is a dice roll away from death. And with 24 rounds, there's no way you're eating through all of that in a normal game. Like maybe in or if you play really long games or whatever, you'll get through it. But there's no way you're going to eat through that in a normal game. So I would say get the mech in, close it, and dump that ammo. That's the Achilles heel of the Grasshopper. But other than that, guys, all done. So I hope you enjoyed this one. A couple of quick things. Number one, don't forget to check out Aries Games and Minis. You need minis, you need dice. You want to buy the brand new Grasshopper sculpt in one of those sweet boxes, the Lance packs, right? You can get those over at Aries Games and Minis. They got Fighting Piranha, they got Hardware Studios, all the good stuff over there for you. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. Click the button, leave a like, leave a comment. You share the video around if you want. If you want to help out the channel more, you can come on over to Patreon. You can leave us $1 a month. That really helps out. And if you want to get more involved, there's a $5 tier, $10 tier with different perks, access to our digital tools, and special veteran challenges and things along those lines. So very cool stuff. But that's it, guys. I'm all done marketing. So thank you so much for watching. And of course, stay tuned. Always great stuff coming from Death from Above Wargaming. Have a good night.